Okay. How are two people here already? How are people here already? Are people here? Is Sam Winterton and Patty Bois here? That can't be, because I just started a new stream. Hello. Hello. I'm back. You're back. Three of us are back. Most people have dropped off. We've lost them forever. He's back. You're back. Yeah, you share it. Now I'm double streaming. Anything could go wrong now. Welcome back to the Bible 50 Minutes. That's what tonight's stream's called. Oh, Chris, if it ain't the light is the sound. What happens is, hello. So what happens is the mic just decides that it doesn't want to work anymore. I don't touch it. I don't do anything. It just decides. And once it does that, there's no coming back. YouTube will just not recognize the mic being replugged back in. Even though it was plugged back in and my PC was saying, yep, the mic's on, YouTube won't have it. And then if you refresh the YouTube page, it just kicks you out of your own stream. So now I am now running two streams simultaneously, thus destroying the internet in my house and making my wife's life misery as she tries to probably watch something to do with wedding dresses in the other room. Camera focus is out. Come on, that's a joke, isn't it, Parker and Admin? That is a joke. That one is a joke. There was me thinking we were going to get to One Kings today. We're going to just do one. No joke. It's not out. Come up. That's your screen, that is. That's your screen, that is. Can anybody else? It's not out of focus for anybody else. No way. No way. It's as good as the lighting and sound. Great. Maybe because I'm now streaming two streams, it's not like coming through properly. A disastrous start to day 40. Soft focus, you look gorgeous. Thank you, Ricky B. That's where you're the best elder of Park End Church. All right. Yeesh. I don't know whether it's the USB connectors. I just don't know. But if this PC just doesn't want to do something anymore, we do. We need the man from Jabesh Gilead to come and take my PC away. All right. 2 Samuel chapter 16. I think. Yeah. Okay, 16. Let me get it back because it's all gone wrong. Okay, here we go. 2 Samuel chapter 16. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. When David had gone a little bit beyond the summit of the Mount of Olives, Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, was waiting there for him. He had 2 donkeys loaded with 200 loaves of bread, 100 clusters of raisins, 100 bunches of summer fruit, and a wineskin full of wine. "What are these for?" the king asked Ziba. Ziba replied, "The donkeys are for the king's people to ride on, and the bread and the summer fruit are for the young men to eat. The wine is for those who become exhausted in the wilderness." "And where is Mephibosheth, Saul's grandson?" the king asked him. "He stayed in Jerusalem," Ziba replied. "He said, 'Today I will get back the kingdom of my grandfather Saul.'" Doesn't sound like Mephibosheth to me. "In that case," the king told Ziba, "I give you everything Mephibosheth owns." "I bow before you," Ziba replied. "May I always be pleasing to you, my lord the king." Shimei curses David. As King David came to Bahurim, a man came out of the village cursing him. It was Shimei, son of Gera, from the same clan as Saul's family. This is a tough time for the Lord's anointed king, isn't it? He threw stones at the king and the king's officers and all the mighty warriors who surrounded him. "Get out of here, you murderer, you scoundrel," he shouted at David. "The Lord is paying you back for all the bloodshed in Saul's clan. You stole his throne, and now the Lord has given it to your son Absalom. At last you will taste some of your own medicine, for you are a murderer." "Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king?" Abishai, son of Zeruiah, demanded. "Let me go over and cut off his head." "No," the king said. "Who asked your opinion, you sons of Zeruiah? The Lord has told him to curse me. Who are you to stop him?" Then David said to Abishai and to all his servants, "My own son is trying to kill me. Doesn't this relative of Saul have even more reason to do so? Leave him alone and let him curse, for the Lord has told him to do it. And perhaps the Lord will see that I am being wronged and will bless me because of these curses today." So David and his men continued down the road, and Shimei kept a pace with them on a nearby hillside, cursing and throwing stones at dirt at David. The king and all who were with him grew weary along the way, so they rested when they reached the Jordan River. I feel bad for David. He's been reduced to humility and rejection, betrayal and cursing. He's outside the city gate, pursued by wicked men who seek his life. Just like Jesus, who also did not respond to curses on that day of his betrayal. Around now onwards, Psalm 3 was composed up to about halfway through 17. Meanwhile, Absalom and all the army of Israel arrived at Jerusalem, accompanied by Ahithophel. When David's friend Hushai, the Archite, arrived, he went immediately to see Absalom. "Long live the king!" he exclaimed. "Long live the king!" "And this is the way you treat your friend David?" Absalom asked him. "Why aren't you with him?" "I'm here because I belong to the man who is chosen by the Lord and by all the men of Israel," Hushai replied. "And anyway, why shouldn't I serve you? Just as I was your father's advisor, now I will be your advisor." Then Absalom turned to Ahithophel and asked him, "What should I do next?" Then Absalom turned to Ahithophel and asked him, "What should I do next?" I'm not sure if Andy FM UK made it over to the news stream as we lost the last one, but his request is about to be granted. Cara isn't here, so I can say thank you, my dear assistant, for handing me Evie Il Doggo, who is now twice the size, possibly 3 or 4 times the size as she was when she's here. There you go, Andy FM UK 1. Here is Evie the doggy. Her favourite books of the Bible are the Mosaic books. She is huge, Sam Whittington. Look at this. Goodbye. She is, Sue Roberts, even at 2 a.m., 4 a.m. and 5:15. Now, she really is gorgeous, says Ricky B. All right, and so concludes today's Bible Hour. I hope it was a blessing to everyone, and we will see you at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Oh, well done, Park End admin. Right, let's get our head in the game. We've been all over the place. Hey, John D. Verse 20. Then Absalom turned to Ahithophel and asked him, "What should I do next?" Ahithophel told him, "Go and sleep with your father's concubines, for he has left them here to look after the palace. Then all Israel will know that you have insulted your father beyond hope of reconciliation, and they will throw their support to you." So they set up a tent on the palace roof where everyone could see it, and Absalom went in and had sex with his father's concubines. Absalom followed Ahithophel's advice just as David had done, for every word Ahithophel spoke seemed as wise as though it had come directly from the mouth of God. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So I don't think this guy is very wise. Two Samuel chapter 17. Now Ahithophel urged Absalom, "Let me choose 12,000 men to start out after David tonight. I will catch up with him while he is weary and discouraged. He and his troops will panic and everyone will run away. Then I will kill only the king, and I will bring all the people back to you as a bride returns to her husband. After all, it is only one man's life that you seek. Then you will be at peace with all the people." This plan seemed good to Absalom and to all the elders of Israel. Interesting there, that principle. 2 Samuel 17. Welcome, Nick Hawkins. Interesting there that the death of one person, there's the principle, brings peace to a nation. Hushai counters Ahithophel's advice. But then Absalom said, "Bring in Hushai the Archite. Let's see what he thinks about this." When Hushai arrived, Absalom told him what Ahithophel had said. Then he asked, "What is your opinion? Should we follow Ahithophel's advice? If not, what do you suggest?" You remember this dude is planted, as in by David. Well, Hushai replied to Absalom, "This time Ahithophel has made a mistake. You know your father and his men. They are mighty warriors. Right now they are as enraged as a mother bear who has been robbed of her cubs. And remember that your father is an experienced man of war. He won't be spending the night among the troops. He is probably already hidden in some pit or cave. And when he comes out and attacks and a few of your men fall, there will be panic among your troops, and the word will spread that Absalom's men are being slaughtered. Then even the bravest soldiers, though they have a heart of a lion, will be paralyzed with fear, for all Israel knows what a mighty warrior your father is and how courageous his men are. I recommend that you mobilize the entire army of Israel, bringing them from as far as Dan in the north and Beersheba in the south. That way, you will have an army as numerous as the sand on the seashore. And I advise that you personally lead the troops. When we find David, we'll fall on him like dew that falls on the ground. Then neither he nor any of his men will be left alive. And if David were to escape into some town, you will have all Israel there at your command. Then we can take ropes and drag the walls of the town into the nearest valley, and until every stone is torn down. Then Absalom and all the men of Israel said, Hushai's advice is better than Ahithophel's, for the Lord has determined to defeat the counsel of Ahithophel, which really was the better plan, so he could bring disaster on Absalom. You remember, all this is coming from Amnon's sexual sin. All of this. Hushai warns David to escape. Hushai told Zadok and Abiathar, the priests, what Ahithophel had said to Absalom and the elders of Israel, and what he himself had advised instead. Quick, he told them, find David and urge him not to stay at the shallows of the Jordan River tonight. He must go across at once into the wilderness beyond, otherwise he will die and his entire army with him. Jonathan and Ahimaaz had been staying at En Rogel so as not to be seen entering and leaving the city. Arrangements had been made for a servant girl to bring them the message they were to take to King David. But a boy spotted them at En Rogel, and he had told Absalom about it. So they quickly escaped to Bahurim, where a man hid them down inside a well in his courtyard. The man's wife put a cloth over the top of the well and scattered grain on it to dry in the sun, so no one suspected they were there. When Absalom's men arrived, they asked her, Have you seen Ahimaaz and Jonathan? The woman replied, They were here, but they crossed over the brook. There's Rahab number 2. Absalom's men looked for them without success and returned to Jerusalem. Then the 2 men crawled out of the well and hurried on to King David. Quick, they told him, cross the Jordan tonight. And they told him how Ahithophel had advised that he be captured and killed. So David and all the people with him went across the Jordan River during the night, and they were all on the other bank before dawn. When Ahithophel realized that his advice had not been followed, he saddled his donkey, went to his hometown, set his affairs in order, and hung himself. He died there and was buried in the family tomb. I don't know if that's a pride thing, but he couldn't bear it. Maybe he got his identity in being wise instead of being in the Lord. So when that thing was taken away, he had nothing left. David soon arrived at Mahanaim. By now, Absalom had mobilized the entire army of Israel and was leading his troops across the Jordan River. Absalom had appointed Amasa as commander of his army, replacing Joab. Joab's been with us for a while, so that's big, who had been his commander under David. Amasa was Joab's cousin. His father was Jether, an Ishmaelite. His mother, Abigail, daughter of Nahash, was the sister of Joab's mother, Zeruiah. Absalom and the Israelite army set up camp in the land of Gilead. When David arrived at Mahanaim, he was warmly greeted by Shobi, son of Nahash, who came from Rabbah of the Ammonites, and by Machir, son of Amiel, from Lo-debar, and by Barzillai of Gilead from Rogelim. They brought sleeping mats, cooking pots, serving bowls, wheat and barley, flour and roasted grain, beans, lentils, honey, butter, sheep, goats, and cheese for David and those who were with him. For they said, "You must all be very hungry and tired, thirsty after your long march through the wilderness." So the Lord's anointed, he's still wandering round the wilderness almost as a rejected king. And Joab is a goner. Here we go. Oh, it's the halfway mark of what would be the Bible hour, which got messed up at the start, but it is 9:30. So take a break. It is the 14th of the 5th, 2020, and it's day 40 of the Bible hour. We'll see you back in 27 seconds. Today's stream is sponsored by Phil Tamlin Flowers and Mike Freeman Bird Mugs. Ricky B. Zadok. What am I thinking? Of course. Absalom's defeat and death. Now, David now mustered the men who were with him and appointed generals and captains to lead them. He sent the troops out in 3 groups, placing one group under Joab, one under Joab's brother Abishai, son of Zeruiah, and one under Ittai, the man from Gath. The king told his troops, "I am going out with you." But his men objected strongly. "You must not go," they urged. "If we have to turn and run, and even if half of us die, it will make no difference to Absalom's troops. They will be looking only for you. You are worth 10,000 of us. And better than you that you stay here in the town and send help if we need it." "If you think that's the best plan, I'll do it," the king answered. Good church leader there, taking the advice of wise people. So he stood alongside the gate of the town as all the troops marched out in groups of hundreds and of thousands. And the king gave this command to Joab, Abishai, and Ittai: "For my sake, deal gently with young Absalom." And all the troops heard the king give this order to his commanders. So the battle began in the forest of Ephraim, and the Israelite troops were beaten back by David's men. There was a great slaughter there that day. 20,000 men laid down their lives. The battle raged all across the countryside, and more men died because of the forest than were killed by the sword. During the battle, Absalom happened to come upon some of David's men. He tried to escape on his mule, but he rode beneath the thick branches of a great tree. His hair got caught in the tree. One of David's men saw what had happened and told Joab, "I saw Absalom dangling from a great tree." "What?" Joab demanded. "You saw him there and didn't kill him? I would have rewarded you with 10 pieces of silver and a hero's belt. I would not kill the king's son for even 1,000 pieces of silver," replied Joab. "We all heard the king say to you and Abishai and Ittai, 'For my sake, please spare young Absalom.' And if I had betrayed the king by killing his son, and the king would certainly find out who did it, you yourself would be the first to abandon me." "Enough of this nonsense," Joab said. Then he took 3 daggers. I'm pretty sure other versions call that spears. Parker Navin, you want to check that out? He took 3 daggers and plunged them into Absalom's heart as he dangled, still alive, by the great tree. 10 of Joab's young armor bearers then surrounded Absalom and killed him. Then Joab blew the ram's horn, and his men returned from chasing the army of Richard Barrett. KJV says it's darts. NIV, javelins. KJV, dart. Oh, is it darts? Like you're actually being serious? Oh. I guess by darts then they don't mean what I'm thinking of darts. I'm sure it's spears. Oh, well, darts. Well, he plunged them into Absalom's heart as he dangled, still alive, in the great tree. 10 of Joab's young armor bearers then surrounded Absalom and killed him. I think it's best rendered spears. I'm just going to put that out there. Then Joab blew the ram's horn, and his men returned from chasing the army of Israel. They threw Absalom's body into a deep pit in the forest and piled a great heap of stones over it, and all Israel fled to their homes. New King James, spears. NIV, javelins. LXX, darts. Oh, well, that's it then. That is it. KJV footnote says spears. Whatever happened, Joab, who's been pretty obedient to the Lord's anointed throughout our time with him, seems to become disobedient and submit rather to his tendency to extreme violence, anger, and hot-headedness. The other day in Bible Hour, we said we'd rather have a hot head than a cold heart. But we also want our hot heads to submit to the Lord's anointed, which Joab doesn't do, but modern day church members should. During his lifetime, Absalom had built a monument to himself in the King's Valley, for he said, "I have no son to carry on my name." He named the monument after himself, and it is known as Absalom's monument to this day. Didn't ever put a monument to the Lord Jesus, did he? Sort of indicator where he stood, I think. David mourns Absalom's death. Howell George, by the way, welcome to chat. I saw yesterday that your church was doing a study on Judges chapter 2. I didn't hear the study, but Judges chapter 2, where the Lord Jesus comes out from Gilgal to lead his army, that's one of the best chapters ever. That is pure Jesus leading church. But here we are, 2 Samuel, verse 19. Then Zadok's son Ahimaaz said, let me run to the king with the good news that the Lord has rescued him from his enemies. Yeah. Bible Hour does 26 verses in like it's nothing. No, Joab told him, it wouldn't be good news to the king that his son is dead. You can be my messenger another time, but not today. Then Joab said to a man from Ethiopia, go and tell the king what you have seen. The man bowed and ran off. But Ahimaaz continued to plead with Joab, whatever happens, please let me go too. Why should you go, my son? Joab replied. There'll be no reward for your news. Yes, but let me go anyway, he begged. Joab finally said, all right, go ahead. So Ahimaaz took the less demanding route by way of the plain and ran to Mahanaim ahead of the Ethiopian. Mahanaim. While David was sitting between the inner and outer gates of the town, the watchman climbed to the roof of the gateway by the wall. As he looked, he saw a lone man running toward them. He shouted the news down to David, and the king replied, if he is alone, he has news. As the messenger came closer, the watchman saw another man running toward them. He shouted down, here comes another one. The king replied, he will also have news. The first man runs like Ahimaaz, son of Zadok, the watchman said. He is a good man and comes with good news, the king replied. Then Ahimaaz cried out to the king, everything is all right. He bowed before the king with his face to the ground and said, praise to the Lord your God, who has handed over the rebels who dared to stand against the Lord the king, my Lord the king. What about young Absalom? The king demanded. Is he all right? Ahimaaz replied, when Joab told me to come, there was a lot of commotion, but I didn't know what was happening. Wait here, the king told him. So Ahimaaz stepped aside. Then the man from Ethiopia arrived and said, I have good news for my lord the king. Today, the Lord has rescued you from all those who rebelled against you. What about young Absalom? The king demanded. Is he all right? And the Ethiopian replied, may all of your enemies, my lord the king, both now and in the future, share the fate of that young man. I think Joab possibly chose the Ethiopian because he would be disconnected probably from the knowledge of the family thing going on and delivering things rather sensitively. He's like, go on, may everybody else be like him. The king was overcome with emotion. He went up to the room over the gateway and burst into tears. As he went, he cried, oh, my son, Absalom, my son, Absalom. If only I had died instead of you. Oh, Absalom, my son, my son. Moving stuff for the Lord's anointed. We're into the third. Take 30 seconds to digest that. Maybe grab a drink. Maybe grab a banana, a souffle, Knickerbocker Glory. Meanwhile, church admin, can you just copy but don't paste Ephesians 4:25-27, please? In any version that relatively is understandable by people in 2020. Ephesians 4:25-27. 2 Samuel chapter 19. Oh, hold on. 30 seconds is not quite enough to make a chicken souffle or whatever. This is what a little sin turns into. Yeah, exactly, Hal George. I don't know if you were here yesterday, but that was pretty much the application of everything we read yesterday. There was so much chaos, and the whole land basically started to split in two over just the smallest of stuff. The first one was a little argy-bargy around the pool. The second one was sin which wasn't dealt with in David's family by David. He got angry, but he did nothing about it. 2 Samuel 19. Joab rebukes the king. Word soon reached Joab that the king was weeping and mourning for Absalom. As all the people heard of the king's deep grief for his son, the joy of that day's victory was turned into deep sadness. They crept back into the town that day as though they were ashamed and had deserted in battle. The king covered his face with his hands and kept on crying, "My son Absalom, Absalom, my son, my son." Then Joab went to the king's room and said to him, "We saved your life today and the lives of your sons, your daughters, and your wives and concubines. Yet you act like this, making us feel ashamed of ourselves. You seem to love those who hate you and hate those who love you. You have made it clear today that your commanders and troops mean nothing to you. It seems that if Absalom had lived, and all of us had died, you would be pleased. Now go out there and congratulate your troops, for I swear by the Lord that if you don't go out, not a single one of them will remain here tonight. Then you will be worse off than ever before." Ooh, I can't turn the page. Done it. So the king went out and took his seat at the town gate. And as the news spread throughout the town that he was there, everyone went to him. Meanwhile, the Israelites who had supported Absalom fled to their homes. And throughout all the tribes of Israel, there was much discussion and argument going on. The people were saying, "The king rescued us from our enemies and saved us from the Philistines, but Absalom chased him out of the country. Now Absalom, who we anointed to rule over us, is dead. Why not ask David to come back and be our king again?" It's interesting there. I think something of David's heart for church comes out there. He does put his mourning aside to celebrate the victory of the church of God, and that the Lord's anointed church won the battle, and that the insubordination was quelled. I think there David is putting church members above himself, and David often shows quality, Jesus-centered quality, because Jesus put his church members above himself. Park End, no, who's Bible Hour? Let's not restrict this to Park End. Bible Hour, if you are baptized church members, joining the life of God, doing good works for the kingdom, you can go to bed tonight knowing that our King Jesus put you before himself. One more thing, and my friend told me this years ago. When people die in modern days, like, you throw out everything that's not important and you only cling to what's important. It's a bit like David here. And so loads of things go out the window and someone says, "I just want one last hug from my family member," or whatever. You're just back to basics. What matters the most? Here, David chose church. In his darkest hour, he clung to church members. And Jesus, he clung to church and died for church and rose for church. Everything was out the window. Friends gone, betrayed, lonely, judged, under wrath. What does he cling to? Church. For the joy that was set before him, the church would be rescued, sanctified, and a holy nation would be purchased. I think we've just seen that a little bit with David. Verse 11. Then King David sent Zadok and Abiathar, the priests, to say to the elders of Judah, "Why are you the last ones to welcome back the king into his palace? For I have heard that all Israel is ready. You are my relatives, my own tribe, my own flesh and blood. So why are you the last ones to welcome back the king?" And David told them to tell Amasa, "Since you are my own flesh and blood, like Joab, may God strike me and even kill me if I do not appoint you as commander of my army in his place." Then Amasa convinced all the men of Judah as they responded unanimously. They sent word to the king, "Return to us and bring back all who are with you." Yeah. Verse 15. So the king started back to Jerusalem, and when he arrived at the Jordan River, the people of Judah came to Gilgal to meet him and escort him across the river. Shimei, son of Gera, the man from Bahurim in Benjamin, hurried across with the men of Judah to welcome King David. 1,000 other men from the tribe of Benjamin were with him, including Ziba, the chief servant of the house of Saul, and Ziba's 15 sons and 20 servants. They rushed down to the Jordan to meet the king. They crossed the shallows of the Jordan to bring the king's household across the river, helping him in every way they could. As the king was about to cross the river, Shimei fell down before him. "My lord, the king, please forgive me," he pleaded. "Forget the terrible thing your servant did when you left Jerusalem. May the king put it out of his mind." Bible Hour listener, if someone was cursing you, throwing sticks at you and your friends and your church members, and hurling abuse, and then following you down the road, hopping across rooftops, doing it, what would you do? What would you do? What would I do if they came back and said, "Please forgive me"? What if they did it 70 times 7 more times? Verse 19, "My lord the king, please forgive me," he pleaded. "Forget the terrible thing your servant did when you left Jerusalem. May the king put it out of his mind. I know how much I sinned. That is why I have come here today, the very first person in all Israel to greet the Lord my king." Then Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said, "Shimei should die, for he cursed the Lord's anointed king." "Who asked your opinion, you sons of Zeruiah?" David exclaimed. "Why have you become my adversary today? This is not a day for execution, for today I am once again the king of Israel." Then, turning to Shimei, David vowed, "Your life will be spared." The Lord's anointed there, forgiving a repentant sinner. Now, Mephibosheth, Saul's grandson, came down from Jerusalem to meet the king. He had not cared for his feet, trimmed his beard. He had not cared for his feet, trimmed his beard, or washed his clothes since the day the king left Jerusalem. Bit of that Nazarite vow going on there that we know about in Bible Hour. "Why didn't you come with me, Mephibosheth?" the king asked him. Mephibosheth replied, "My lord the king, my servant Ziba deceived me. I told him, 'Saddle my donkey so I can go with the king, for you know I am crippled.' Ziba has slandered me by saying that I refused to come. But I know that the Lord my king is like an angel of God. So do what you think is best. All my relatives and I could expect only death from you. my Lord, but instead you have honored me by allowing me to eat at your own table. What a great Christian attitude that is to the Lord's anointed. So the Father's anointed Jesus. Basically, every church member should be saying tonight, we expect death from you, but Lord, instead, you have honored me by allowing me to eat at your table and be part of church. What more can I ask? You've said enough, David replied. I've decided that you and Ziba will divide your land equally between you. Give him all of it, Mephibosheth said. I am content just to have you safely back again, my lord the king. Awesome. The Lord's anointing, even giving land out to people who hurt him. Well, one person who hurt him. Barzillai of Gilead had come down from Rogelim to escort the king across the Jordan. He was very old, 80 years of age, and very wealthy. He was the one who provided food for the king during his stay at Mahanaim. Come across with me and live in Jerusalem, the king said to Barzillai. I will take care of you then. No, he replied, I am far too old to go with the king to Jerusalem. I am 80 years old today and can no longer enjoy anything. Oh, food and wine are no longer tasty. I cannot hear the singers as they sing. I would only be a burden to the Lord my king. Just go across the Jordan River with the king. Just to go across the Jordan River with the king is all the honor I need. Then let me return again to die in my own town, where my father and mother are buried. But here is your servant, my son Kimham. Let him go with my lord the king and receive whatever you want to give him. Good, the king agreed. Kimham will go with me, and I will help him in any way you would like, and I will do for you anything you want. So all the people crossed the Jordan with the king. After David had blessed Barzillai and kissed him, Barzillai returned to his home. The king then crossed over to Gilgal, taking Kimham with him. All the troops of Judah and half the troops of Israel escorted the king on his way. It's not over though, is it? It is not over. Park End, admin. Oh no, hold it. Okay, hold it. But all the men of Israel complained to the king. The men of Judah stole the king and didn't give us the honor of helping take you, your household, and your men across the Jordan. The men of Judah replied, the king is one of our own kinsmen. Why should this make you angry? We haven't eaten any of the king's food or received any special favors. But there are 10 tribes in Israel, the others replied. So we have 10 times as much the right to the king as you do. What right do you have to treat us with such contempt? Weren't we the first to speak of bringing him back to be our king again? The argument continued back and forth, and the men of Judah spoke even more harshly than the men of Israel. So just back up before that last bit of yet another argument within the church, we have a significant moment again where the Lord's anointed leads the church back over the Jordan River, as if to say, let's do this again. New life, let's do it again. And for a brief moment, there's forgiveness and peace, and the church is united. And there's nothing more powerful than the church when it's united. Park End, could you just post that link just to drill that home, because it's so essential. Like, you get certain people, don't you, get their identity in divisions and anger, and if you took arguments away, they'd have nothing left in life. Don't be like that. Ooh, he's gone for the New Living Translation. Ephesians 4:25. So stop telling lies. Let us tell our neighbors the truth, for we are all part of the same body. And don't sin by letting anger control you. Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry, for anger gives a foothold to the devil. Oh, he's gone for the KJV as well. Wherefore, putting away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. Be ye angry and sin not. Yeah, that's better, because you can be angry in a non-sinful way. It states the positive and then the negative. Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath, neither give place to the devil. I mean, it's 21:58. We don't want to start 2 Samuel 20 because we should end by saying this. Don't go to bed tonight as a church member who has bitterness in your heart. Look at what bitterness is doing in the life of the ancient church. Don't do it. Confess it to the Lord Jesus and know the forgiveness that we've just seen David show people who are guilty. That's what Jesus does. And if we reach out at any point to people who we have fallen out with and they reject it, all right, fine, leave that with them. There's only so much we can do. But we can ensure that we are not filled with bitter hatred. Be angry, but sin not. In other words, tell the Lord about it, give it to him, and remember the old Mosaic promise from Deuteronomy. Which one am I trying to think of? Vengeance shall be mine, saith the Lord. Let's do that one. That fits. Park End and wider World Bible Hour. It has been a chaotic hour. The sound conked out. The dog made an appearance. That was about it. It was pretty plain sailing from then. I hope that we have all learned things about the Lord's anointed and the forgiveness he has. That the betrayal David went through by even those dearest to him as he crossed that Kidron brook over, as people are hurling curses at him, but he did not respond in kind. A prophetic insight to Jesus. Absalom's death brings peace to a nation. Jesus' death brings peace to a nation. Church. So may we go tonight loving one another, praying for one another, being good for one another, picking up on each other's sins when necessary in order to restore one another. May we do good works for one another. And may the Lord bless you and keep you and cause his face to shine upon you and give you peace. Roger Freeman, what breed is he? She is a fox red Labrador. That is a Labrador. That is the color fox red. Good night, and we will see you tomorrow as we trundle our way into 1 Kings. Here comes Solomon.